Hey there, Eurus here, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with the amazing humans from the community world about their life journeys and learn from each other. And today we have a conversation with Pete Heslop, a managing director at Steadfast Collective, with the mission to bring people together and leave the internet in a better place than he found it. A runner, sometimes lapsed, a Southampton Football Club fan, a lone perfectionist, and digital community leaders podcast host. So, hello, Pete.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Finally, it's been a long time, but here we are talking. And tell me, how did you feel after having 3 half marathons in 3 weeks?
So 3 half marathons in 3 weeks nearly broke me. The last one was really hilly in a place called Winchester nearby. But since then, I ran the London full marathon, and it was easier running 3 half marathons than one full marathon. It's I'm not built to run full marathons. It turns out.
What is the difference between running one full marathon and 3 half marathons?
Well, the 3 half marathons were in a week's apart, so that's instantly your body gets a break. I think mentally running a full marathon. So London is such a big event. It's such a prestigious marathon. There's literally like 100,000 runners or a very large number of runners, and the crowds are unbelievable. It's the closest I will ever get to becoming a professional athlete. So you run the first kind of half an hour and it's all pretty quiet, and then you hit this first corner and it's round a boat called Cutty Sark, and it's like walking out to a football stadium, and the emotion of it is just so much. So you run, if you're not a very well-timed runner like me, you run an unbelievable half marathon, and then you get to the halfway point and you go, oh dear, I've overdone it. I've still got to do that all over again. And then I had a very, very painful second half of the marathon. So that's why London was so tricky for me, because I poorly timed it. I got carried away with the crowds.
Have you ever wanted to become a professional athlete?
I am nowhere near good enough to become a professional athlete. So running for me is like a form of therapy. So it really helps my mental health, as does football. And I'm not a very good footballer. So at least if I can run, I can outrun the competition. I may not be able to play as well as them, but at least I can outrun them. So no, I couldn't be a professional athlete if I wanted to.
So basically, you already have this running part. The second part is just to kick the ball in the right direction. So that's what football is.
Yeah. It's funny because I played a lot as a kid and I was never very good and I didn't really enjoy it. And then I kind of rediscovered it at about 18 because I realized that stereotypically, if you walked into a room and you kind of walked up to another person and mentioned football, you could generally have something in common. So I was like, this is great for an introvert like myself. And then I just kind of fell in love with football all over again. So yeah.
Why Southampton?
So that's where I live. It's where I've always lived. I've never lived not in Southampton. I was lucky enough to grow up in the New Forest, which is a very short ferry or a 20-minute car journey away from Southampton. And then when my wife and I got married, we moved into the city centre. And then now we live in kind of a suburb of Southampton. So yeah, I always have. And yeah, I try and get to the games as often as I can, but having a couple of kids now isn't quite as often as I'd maybe like.
What kind of a fan are you?
What kind of fan am I? I am a sort of fan that follows along, but I'm not obsessive. Like I'm pretty chill. When it comes to international football, I take it quite a bit more seriously. Like I will watch every international game. Saints I will follow, and I'm aware of who the players are and what our tactics are and transfer windows and score lines, but I can't go to every game. It's not going to happen.
Talking about running, what is the difference for you between having a sprint and a recovery run?
Okay, yeah, good question. So a sprint or a tempo run, so an intentionally quick run, is designed to get you mentally and physically ready to run those kind of runs again. So, for instance, running at a 5K pace for 10 minutes, right? That's a quick That's a quick run. Or you might be doing 9 out of 10 efforts for 60 seconds. That's a quick run, and they're exhausting. A recovery run is just legs and like just miles in the legs. So a coach explained it as in even a professional athlete will spend 80% of their time running doing really boring slow runs because you just need miles in your legs, and you just need the like psychology of just running and running long. And sometimes you'll head out the door and stuff will hurt and you need to get used to that. Sometimes it'll be raining, you need to get used to that. Sometimes it'll be hot, you need to get used to that. So a recovery run is just your standard run. It's getting out the door. The most of the effort is, can I get my shoes on? Can I get out the door? A tempo run is, okay, we're going to smash it today and actually stretch ourselves.
How do you feel while having sprint and a recovery run? Like, what do you think about during this
Yeah.
process?
So a recovery run, I am thinking through everything. I'm thinking through life things. I'm thinking through work things. I'm making notes as I go. I might, like, if it's a really slow recovery run, I might have a podcast on. I might have an audiobook. On a tempo run, all I'm thinking about is how much this hurts and how excited I am for it to be over, because it's so intense. I'm just excited for it to be finished. It's a little bit like running a race. You know it's going to feel good afterwards, but during the tempo run, it does not feel good.
Do you listen to anything while having temporary run?
Yeah, well, I listen to a coach, and I listen to kind of high energy music. So I have like a running playlist. So I have a couple of running playlists, one for like long runs, which is more chill, and then one which is a bit more intense, and that one kind of gets my heart rate going.
Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Tell me about your parents. Who are they?
Yeah, so my parents met in the world of catering when they were young. So my dad was a chef, my mum was head waitress at various hotels, and together they kind of grew up and did their 20s and 30s in hospitality. So I grew up around having two parents who were both amazing at cooking, and then my dad and my parents when I was young, shifted their careers to become uh, more available. It's really hard to work in hospitality industry and have social working hours. So my dad went and worked as a chef at an office, which meant he was finished by 3 because he would serve lunch and there was no dinner service. So I saw my dad, where if he was still, at a hotel, I basically wouldn't have seen him. And my mum did a similar thing, and they, we grew up, like I said, in the New Forest, and it was good. And yeah, like having parents working in hospitality was really fun. Like we recently went to a really nice place for my dad's birthday, and we had a chef's table so you could kind of see all the chefs cooking, and they were walking us through it. And my mum always reminds me of this thing fairly often, that you can forgive bad food with good service. Like if you go to a restaurant and the food is a little bit off, but the service is incredible, that is completely forgivable. You can get past it. If the service is rude, but the food's incredible, you're only going to forget the rude service. And I feel like you can bring that into your work life as well, right? Like we might make a mistake in our professional lives, but if we have the personality and the charisma and the honesty to kind of work around that, we can, yeah. So that was a couple of things I learned from my folks working in hospitality.
So while having parents really experienced in this hospitality and catering and cooking,
Yeah.
how do you feel when you are going outside to different restaurants? You have such a high bar already.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at home we would eat normal, really good stuff. But my parents have ruined the Sunday roast for us. I'm fortunate that I'm married also to a really incredible cook. Um, it's not what she does professionally, but she is a really great cook. But it's hard for me to go anywhere and find a better roast dinner than I would find at my parents' house, which is is funny because they've kind of ruined that for me entirely. But yeah, no, me and my wife, we don't get to, because we have 2 young kids, we don't get to go out very often. So when we do go out, we go out somewhere nice. And yeah, our standards and our our bar of where we want to eat is quite high now, just because we don't get to go out very often.
Have you ever thought about being also in a hospitality sphere?
No, but I know because I saw how hard it is. And my parents kind of actively encouraged me not to go into that. But what I do think is when you are designing software or you're designing an onboarding flow or you're designing a community or whatever it is, a lot of it is just good hospitality, right? So I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and let's say you're building out a community platform for a SaaS project or whatever it is, and a lot of that initial onboarding is just good hospitality. Have you told people where to put their stuff? You know,
Yeah.
do they feel comfortable? Do they know who to speak to? Do they know what to do? And a lot of it's just like hosting a dinner party. I think onboarding onto an app or onto a community is a lot like hosting a dinner party. Is do people know where to be, what to do, where the toilets are? Like a lot of it's just common sense. But I think the more we think about UI and UX and community design as hospitality, the better the experience for the end person is.
On your blog, you wrote that you always had the idea that with code you could build something from nothing. So where
Yeah.
did you get this idea?
Yeah. This is like talking to my therapist. So, so I always knew that I wanted to build a business. I always knew that I wanted to lead a team, and I always knew that I wanted to build things. I didn't know if that was going to be in wood, in stone, or what it would be. So my background, when I went to college, I actually did theatre. I did technical theatre. So I would design lighting shows for bands and theatre and whatnot. Um, and then transitioned into web development. And I I love the concept that we can build something from nothing. Like code is so valuable, and we are incredibly fortunate to work in an industry that is highly valued. Um, you can work anywhere in the world. You can work remotely. You basically just need a laptop and a skill set, and you can build basically whatever you want. Now, if I was a bricklayer, I would need bricks. I would need a place to do it. I would need, it would cost me money to even just experiment. But with code, it costs you basically nothing. And that's kind of what really drew me to web development as a kid, was the fact that I can just start, right?
Why did you decide to drop out of college twice?
Yeah. That's a great question. So I, while I was doing my first course in technical theatre, I was working in a theatre and I was starting to get work for a couple of bands. And I was finding that actually the progression of the course wasn't quick enough to what I was learning. So I literally approached my course leader and said, look, if I hand in all my coursework, this was like February, so months before the course finished. I said, if I hand all my coursework in, can I just go work? And they said, yeah, sure. And I left with a distinction, like a really high mark. Finished early, didn't finish the second half of the course, but left with my distinction. Did that, and then I thought, do you know what? I want to transition this into more business context. And basically the same thing happened again. So I went to a different college, started up a business course, and went, I'm missing opportunities by just not doing and learning. So I think I did about 6 weeks at that college.
No, I have a little bit of personal interest here. So I have a 12 years old kid, and you also
Yeah.
have growing up children. So what do you think about future of learning? What do you think about future of school, university, and all this stuff? Like how to deal with it? How to deal with it for our kids?
Yeah, I have no idea how teachers are meant to be able to keep up with the pace of technology. Like we have students applying for courses, applying for positions with us, and they've just done a university educational degree from a good university, and what they learn is already out of date. So
Hmm.
how a primary school, teaching a 10-year-old, these 10-year-olds probably know just as much about how to use an iPad as the teachers. It blows my mind. I have no idea how they're going to keep up. For me, we don't even look at educational background when we hire. I think I I think I would personally, I would like my kids to leave the education system being well-rounded humans who are socially adapted as much as what they physically learn, because they can learn from YouTube, they can learn from anywhere, they can learn from mum, dad, from school, grandparents, whatnot. But actually becoming really well-rounded humans where kids will be mean, they will have to handle playground politics and stuff. That's the sort of stuff you have to learn at school. And there's no way mum and dad can just swoop in and help you when some kid is, deciding they don't want to play with you or something. So yeah.
And how do you learn?
Personally, that's a good question. So I speak to a lot of people. I'm really fortunate that in my job is basically talking to people. And while I'm an introvert, and I find people exhausting, it's the best way to learn. I also read a fair amount, and I just do. Like again, like I'm fortunate that I have quite a lot of freedom in my role. So if we're like, right, we're going to write a book about community leadership, we just kind of start and we just kind of see where we go and just have the freedom where we get to do. I'm I'm quite dyslexic. I'm definitely up there on the dyslexic scale. So the way my brain processes is very much in bullet points and short sentences. If you've read, which you have, any of my content, it's all short sentences. It's like I'm talking to you. It's not paragraphs. I don't really understand why we would use a paragraph. They're so complicated to read. So that's how my brain works, and that's how I learn.
Why is dyslexia your superpower?
Wow, you really have dug in. Because I just think different to people who aren't dyslexic, and I say that in the just like the nicest way possible. Like I wish I could spell. Like I often have to use a simpler word than I want to because I can't spell it. And even if I'm trying to Google the spelling, I still can't find out how to spell it. But the way that my brain can communicate and process, because I've had to go round barriers and like the things the way of communicating, the way I've learned, means that I'm able to communicate in a way which I think is quite effective, and has given me a way of thinking which non-dyslexics don't have, because they don't have to think about, sentence size, because they can read paragraphs no problem.
So basically, it helps you to have this really clear, straight to the point communication.
I think so. And the way I'm quite fortunate, the way my brain makes leaps. So I will enter a meeting. I'm quite fortunate that I can then kind of jump to a conclusion quite quickly, because I'm so used to finding many different paths to a solution, because my dyslexic brain is often blocked by a few of them. I can't write my way out of it. I can't spell my way out of this problem. I can often disregard options quite quickly and get to the solution maybe quicker than some of my peers can, because I've had to been doing it since I was a young age. So yeah.
There are different approaches to getting on the book. So for example, you might read, listen, whatever. And sometimes you just go through the whole book, then find some pieces of advice. Sometimes you just go through one small paragraph and like try to implement it. Sometimes whatever. So what is your approach to the book?
To reading a book?
Reading, listening. So yeah, how do you process it?
So I will either sit through a book as quick as possible, because my brain can be quite addictive like that, or I really struggle to get through it. But what I will generally do, if there's a book I know I want to read, I will grab my post-it notes. Like I have like small bookmark post-it notes, and I will bookmark as I go through, and I will highlight. And I have absolutely no shame in ruining a book. Like I will just highlight, scribble all over it. Like a book is there to be used. It's not to be beautiful. I don't really understand the point of keeping a book in pristine condition. And then I will then kind of take notes out of that, because I will, as part of my dyslexia, my short-term memory is so bad, I basically can't remember what I've just read. So I have to highlight good stuff and then kind of come back to it. And the way that I often remember what's going on is I have to essentially write out the good bits, or the bits I want to learn from a book, to kind of set it into my memory. My memory is so bad. I can barely remember what I had for dinner yesterday. I think it was pasta. Like, it's so bad. Drives my wife insane.
How do you deal with it? How do you help yourself?
I'm learning at the moment to try and forgive myself. I lose a lot of stuff. So I have air tags on absolutely everything I possibly can squeeze them onto. But I will lose, bits of paper and stuff that I need. And I'm learning to forgive myself that it's okay. If it's not in my calendar or it's not on my to-do list, it's not going to happen. I will just forget it's there. Because what happens is my brain will get this backlog of tasks I need to do. So I will dump it into the relevant places and then I will just forget them instantly, like just instantly forget them. And I know that it's somewhere safe. So if I can't sleep at night, I'll just pop a load of stuff into my to-do list, forget about it, go to sleep, and then it will go into my diary as it needs to. But yeah, yeah, it's a pain in the ass not being able to remember. My long-term memory is incredible. Like I can remember being 4, and I can remember like smells from when I was like 10, but I can't remember yesterday. It's frustrating.
Talking about your being 4, so what is the first memory of your childhood that comes to your mind right now?
I was 4. I was at preschool. We just changed preschools because I cried at the first one. So my mum took me to a different one. And she promised me that if I stayed at preschool, she'd buy me a toy car on the way home. And it turns out I got a lot of toy cars over the next couple of weeks because I would get a toy car every time we walked past the toy shop after preschool. So yeah, I was about 4 at the time.
Do you know why did you cry?
Probably separation. Probably just, I didn't want to leave mum. I'd only ever known, having 4 years with mum by my side for 4 years. So I imagine that I don't remember the crying. I remember the going to the next place and receiving the cars. I just hear about the crying. Yeah.
That's how you started your car toy business. Okay, I got
Yeah.
it.
I had a lot of toy cars as a kid.
Do you still have the Golden Gate Bridge photo near your window?
Golden Gate Bridge. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Why? Why do you have it?
That's a good question. So I dropped out. I'll give you a bit more backstory. I'll go back a little bit more first. So I dropped out of college. Went into doing lighting design. Realized that hours were really unsociable, a bit like hospitality, and kind of fell back into web development as I did when I was like 14, 15. Jumped around a few different jobs, and I was about 17 at this point, and I was in a job which was good, and in the evenings I was building an agency. So I would work 10 a.m. till 6 at my day job, and then I would go to the office. We had an office. There was 3 founders of this other agency, and we would build websites until like 11 p.m. And I would do that. I did that for like 6 months. And we said, right, I was like the more experienced developer. So like, right, I'm gonna leave my job, and I will go full time first, and then you'll all follow. Turns out we all left the same month. So the 3 of us left our jobs, our full time paying jobs, and went full time on this business, and we grew it, and we did really great. And then they're my best men at my wedding and whatnot, and I got married. And then I remember having this kind of epiphany, and I'm still really good friends with these guys. So there's absolutely no bad blood. And I went, look, we are building a design agency, and at heart, I'm a back end developer. I build like complex software stuff. I remember we landed this really big London design project, and I just had absolutely no interest in it. So I was washing some dishes, and we just got married, me and my wife, and washing some dishes, and I just looked at her and went, look, I think I'm going to leave Brightbyte, which is the name of the agency at the time. And she said, okay. She was still at university, and it was kind of a big decision. So we kind of thought about it and decided it was the right idea. I chatted to the team, essentially I left the agency. They kind of brought me out, and no self-respecting person or bank would give me the money to go buy a house. So what I did instead is I took that money and I went traveling. So me and Rach went traveling for like the best part of a year, kind of 6 months a year. And San Francisco is one of the places we visited. And traveling has been so ingrained in Rach and I's formation as a couple, that travel's really important. And I'm really excited that over the last couple of years, I got to travel with my 4-year-old, and then in about 2 weeks' time, I get to start traveling with my 9-month-old. So yeah, I'm really excited to fly and explore with them. So yeah, traveling's important to me.
Have you ever thought about moving to San Francisco?
No. I turns out I found out on that trip I get really homesick. I really
Mm.
love being near my parents. I have a great relationship with my parents. I have a great relationship with my sister and my in-laws, as does my wife. So we would never want to live too far away from our parents. We've talked about the idea of moving to Australia, but it's just too far away. If Australia was an hour away, we would have moved by now, but it's just too far. I can't get a call from my mum and then 24 hours later arrive in London. It's just too far.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And tell me the backstory of your around the world journey with Rachel.
Yeah, so that was that big trip. So we essentially we had planned a trip to Europe. So we packed the car, we went camping, we had all of the camping gear, went down to Italy and back. So kind of through Germany, through Belgium, through Switzerland, landed in Italy, did a bunch of camping, came back through France. And just before we went on that trip, I just said, like, what if we just go like around the world? Like, what does that look like? And we didn't have loads of money. Obviously, we just sold that bit of the agency. We had some money. Rach was just about to finish her master's degree, her degree. Um, so we literally went to a travel agent that was designed for 20-year-olds called SDA Travel. It doesn't exist anymore. Opened up a catalog and went, that route looks good. How much would this cost? And they said a number, and we went, sounds good. Literally sounds good. So we went to places in hindsight, like I have absolutely no interest in going to LA, and we went to LA. I don't know why we went to LA. It was not a nice place to go. And there's a few places like were really random on the route, but we loved it and we had a blast and we traveled so quickly. Like I wish we had longer and more money. But yeah, it was surprisingly hard to come back to real life after traveling for that long.
What was the best transport during this journey?
We stayed for a week on a yacht in Fiji. And we stayed with this couple, and they would say, what do you want to do today? And we'd go, we want to go snorkeling. And we would kind of point, and they would take us there, and we would snorkel, come back on the boat. They would feed us. We would sleep. We would drink beer. It was beautiful. It was great.
How did you meet them?
On Airbnb.
Ah, okay, that's how it works.
Yeah. I also get really seasick, it turns out. So I was seasick quite a lot, but it was a once in a lifetime sort of experience that you get to hang out on a yacht in the middle of Fiji.
Do you still keep in touch with them?
No, no, we don't. We still check in on their Airbnb listing every so often, and they still do it. But no, we didn't keep in touch with them. They were Greg and someone. Greg was the guy's name. I've forgotten the lady's name.
What was your favorite place during this journey?
We, so we went all around the world, and we still love Italy the most. We just love Italy. But from that flying trip we did, it would probably be. I really loved Vancouver. I loved going to Canada. I'm really fortunate. As a kid, I got to go to Canada a few times to go skiing, and Vancouver is a beautiful place. You can stand in this one spot in Vancouver, and to your left, you have this incredible city, which is just beautiful and clean. You have this incredible park, and then you have the mountains and the water. It's like you have everything within like a square mile. And I'm like, this is incredible. I can go for a hike, or I can go for a run, or I can go to the city. I do everything all at once. Yeah, and I loved that.
How often do you go skiing?
Yeah, not as often as I would like. So I learned when I was 5. My grandparents taught me, and we used to go every year. And I've probably been twice in the last, or 3 times in the last kind of 6-7 years. So not as often as I'd like, but as the girls get older, as I've got 2 girls, as the girls get older, we'll go more often.
You know, it's a little bit of my life story. So I promised my wife for 14 years that we will go snowboarding, and we just recently did it. And it was
nice.
like, yeah.
How did it go? Did you enjoy it?
I thought that I would forget everything, but no,
Yeah.
it was great.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah, it's like muscle memory.
Yeah, exactly. And the hardest part for me, you know, I always a little bit of afraid, like what really stopped me from doing that. I was afraid of like, you know, somebody will smash at us on the slope because when I'm learning and when I'm teaching my wife on how to do it, and like
Yeah.
was so afraid, but yeah, things went well. We had
Right.
fun. So way to go. And I'm curious, how do you feel about like what do you feel when you are skiing?
I like the freedom. I like the freedom that. So I'm not naturally gifted at sport, but skiing is kind of the one thing I am pretty good at. Just because I've done it so much, which is I'm really fortunate to have done, and I really like that I get to. Don't know. I get to kind of make your own path on the snow, and you get to hang out in the beautiful mountains, and I get to do it with my dad. My dad skis, and it's kind of his passion, and I just love that I get to. Don't know. It's kind of built into what my whole family skis. So my sister, my grandparents, all my cousins, and everything, and it was just something that I grew up doing and just love.
Do you usually go fast or kind of enjoying the slope?
No, I usually go fast. I go as fast as the people I'm with will let me go. So yeah, me and my dad when we shoot off, we're pretty quick. We can get around the resort pretty quickly.
Are you a competitive person?
Yeah, in some things. So yeah, on in football and in sport, definitely. Yeah, yeah, I am. Yeah.
How did that journey around the world journey, how has it influenced your life?
Good question. We got to explore lots of different cultures. Like we got to experience Indonesia, Malaysia, like even just the States. The States isn't, people think that Europe and the States are so similar, but they're not. They're so different. And I think for us, I think we got to experience that and kind of become more rounded because of that. But also, it gave us a real passion and drive to be like, no, we want to do more of this. Actually, like, how do we put ourselves in a position where we can do more of this, to the point where we're already saving for when we are 50, that we can do the same trip again. Like we have a savings pot, we put some money in every month so we can do the same trip again when we're 50
With or without kids?
without. So when we're 50, the kids will be like just turned adults, and we worked out that they can join us for some of it, but not all of it. They'll be busy. They'll have what they don't want to hang out with their parents for 6 months. They want to go hang out with their friends, right?
Exactly, exactly. So, what do you like the most about the Moana movie?
Where are these questions coming from? I love it. What do I love? It was my daughter's first like movie that she fell in love with. It was her first Disney film that she really loved. And I just like I've got two daughters and a really strong, independent wife, and we look for films where there's strong, independent, main characters. And Moana's a great example of that. And the music is great. The soundtrack of that film is really good. So yeah, no, it's a fun film, and I'm excited to watch the next one.
Yeah, exactly. How far ago was the number one on your Spotify list in 2021? So,
Was it? Okay, there you go. There you go. No,
did
yeah,
you
no,
listen to it or was it your daughter?
it would have been we would have been playing it for my daughter, yeah. But yeah, no, it is a bop.
No wonder because at some point, music from Puss in Boots 3 was like on my top list on Spotify. So I
Nice.
totally get it. What other similar movies would you advise to take a look at?
Yeah, so we really so we there's an author called Julia Donaldson, and she writes things like The Gruffalo, books like The Gruffalo and Zog, and they're like really beautiful books to read to kids, but then they are often most of them be made into films, like the 30-minute films, like stop animation, and they're just really slow. Like in the world where you've got things like Coco Melon and just carnage TV, we try and find slower paced TV for my daughter to watch. So we um just because we find it helps her relax rather than get us all hyped up. So things that we really encourage would be like Trash Truck. We really enjoy Frog and Toad. We really enjoy Bluey is pretty hyperactive, but it's got some great morals in it. But yeah, anything that's like slow and the story is slow, we try to encourage, because TV shouldn't get my daughter hyped up. It should help her relax, if anything.
How do you feel about The Boy, the Mole, and the Horse movie?
Yeah, it was good. We watched it at Christmas when it came out. And I've got a couple of I've got the book and I've got the film version of the book. And I think during the pandemic, I had a really low point with my mental health. And that was one of the books that I got. And actually, it's the book that I often give to people who are struggling with depression and whatnot. And there's just a few really good bits in that just make you feel really good about yourself. There's a few really good lines in there, which just kind of make you, I don't know, feel good. So yeah.
Have you finally managed to have a perfect lawn?
A perfect what?
Lawn, where the grass is growing.
Oh, lawn. Yeah, yes, I do have a great lawn. I do not care about our garden in regards to flowers or trees. That is very much my wife's domain. She enjoys that, but the green lawn I do care about, and it does really help kind of keep me calm. Having kids definitely ruins it because they do not care, and they will happily leave whatever toys they want on my lawn. But yeah, no, I
Uh,
do like having a nice green lawn.
Sounds amazing, like they're leaving their toys on my lawn.
Get off my lawn.
Is it why you don't have a dog?
Yeah, I don't know how people have dogs and children. There's two children is already too many. I don't need another thing to look after and keep alive.
I'm having this joke with my wife. So we have one kid and two dogs, and I'm like, we'd better have two children, you know? And
At least you can take children into a restaurant.
yeah, I would trade two dogs for one children. So
There we go. Yeah, no, I grew up with dogs, but I don't have any interest in having them again. So yeah.
once you shared lawn care is self-care. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think running a business or running a community or just work, often you're not prioritizing yourself. And then when you get married, you naturally have to become less selfish. There's another person to kind of consider. And then when you have kids, you don't have an opportunity to be selfish. Like literally, you wake up and it's a knock, knock, knock at your door. Daddy, I'm wearing an Elsa costume and I want to go make pancakes. I'm like, right, okay. I've barely opened my eyes, but let's do that. And I think for me, lawn care was when I was like, do you know what? I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go cut the grass for 30 minutes. And it's so loud. My daughter doesn't want to be in the garden and no one's going to disturb me. And I just get to be by myself where I'm the only one for that half an hour that matters. And I think sometimes the best thing we can do for our work and our spouse and our kids is actually be selfish. Like I'm at the end of my tether. I need to go for a run. I'm struggling. I need to make space for myself so I can give back to you.
Yeah.
And I find that lawn, looking after the grass helps me with that.
How does it feel for you to say you are sorry?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm not sure. I guess it depends on the context, right? But I think Rach and I, my wife and I, we got to do some marriage prep before we got married. So we had an older couple chat to us about some kind of some things that we might want to consider, like just around our marriage. And one of the things they taught us was like early communication. And it's amazing once you kind of spot how important communication is. It sounds so obvious. How often you meet couples who just don't talk to each other. So I think for us, like communication is really important, and it's a case of how can I, apologize when I need to and whatnot. And it's a case of I think often when you're trying to apologize, especially to someone like your spouse or your kids, it's, you're on the same team. Like that's the same thing, right? So whether or not it's me and my daughters or whether it's me and my wife, like you may have a falling out or an argument, but you got to try and get back. Basically, you're on the same team, right? Ultimately, you're aiming for the same goals. So yeah.
Sometimes when I'm having some quarrels with my wife or something like that, I kind of know this that we are on the same team, but
Yeah,
it's so hard
it
to
can be.
stop at the moment, to
Yeah,
say, I'm sorry. It's so hard sometimes.
yeah. And I think we're probably, I think us and maybe the generation before us, but mostly us, I think, are the first generation to really apologize to our children. It's really interesting. Like, I
Yeah,
apologize to my children all the time.
yeah,
And I think it's, I can't imagine my grandparents apologizing to my parents very often. I got cross. I'm really sorry. Daddy was having a bad day. I shouldn't have taken out on you. Like, those kind of things.
yeah.
And I think as people's emotional education expands, I think we're learning actually children do have a pretty high bandwidth to understand their feelings and your feelings. And I don't need to hide when I'm angry. I might just need to explain to you why I'm feeling frustrated. So yeah, no, I think I'm always impressed how emotionally intelligent a 4-year-old can be.
I totally agree with you here because I can't even recall my parents came to me and say like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I overreacted," or "I'm sorry, I was busy." I can remember just one time, my grandfather, he was like this person who like not very talkative, like always straight to the point, always doing stuff, and like even if didn't do something well, he will never be the person who will come and say sorry.
Mm,
Once in my life, he came to me and said he was sorry. And I still remember this for the whole
mm,
my life. My grandfather's passed like 10 years ago or something. Like
mm.
I still have it in my mind and I totally hear you. And I feel like it's so important to tell it to your kids because, you know, that's exactly how you teach them to understand, yeah, as you told, their feelings. And that's exactly
Yeah.
how you can tell them that, you are not right always. And
Mm,
it's okay, as long as you understand that and as long
yeah.
as you can accept it and as long as you can fix it. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's deep. Thank you so
Mm.
much for sharing that. And Pete, I really wish to have the sky as the limit to our conversation, but time is the limit. So let's jump to the rapid fire questions.
Go on then.
Host an event or participate in an event?
I'd rather host the event.
Early morning or late evening?
Early morning.
What are your favorite color and song?
Blue and Dance with Me was the song my wife walked down the aisle to.
If you were a superhero, what superpower would you have?
Teleportation.
Who do you learn from? Name just one person.
My wife.
Name two people from the community world whom I should definitely reach out to and have this conversation with.
Uh, Rebecca from Common Room is an incredible human who I admire greatly. And Anne Longley, who helped us write the community leaders report, is also just an excellent, excellent person based in Brighton and London.
I've never done this before, but I had a conversation with Jenny Weigel and she was like, I love this approach in one podcast. They ask a question, what to ask another person,
Yeah,
kind of like ask it forward. It's like pay it
yeah.
forward, but with questions. So give me a question to ask a future guest.
So one question that we ask in our interview process, which always goes down really well, is tell me a professional mistake you've made and tell me how that changed you.
Got it. And is there one question that I definitely should have asked you, but didn't?
Why I care about community?
It's kind of obvious. Still, why do you care about community?
I think for me, community is everything, right? So community is just embedded in day-to-day life. But for me, the concept of helping people gather in places and spaces, whether digital or in person, just really sets me alight. And I run a software company. We build software, which is great. But it's like, well, I've been doing that for years and years. What really brings me alive, and it's helping people find their places and spaces. And I just love doing that.
Yeah, I can relate to that, and when the war in Ukraine started, like having community around me was like lifesaver. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate. And Pete, previously, before this conversation, I knew that you're a great expert. I knew that you're doing good things. I knew that you're good on a video, that you have a great YouTube channel, and that you are sharing your knowledge openly. But after today's conversation, I understood that you're also a great father, a great husband, a great son, and I I just don't know, but something inside of me just changed. From now on, I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like you are my friend. I don't know
Ah,
why.
thanks,
I
buddy.
can't explain it, but yeah, thank you so much for having this such an open conversation and sometimes going to really deep things.
Mm.
And yeah, thank you very much for that.
No, thank you. Been really fun. I've enjoyed it. Thanks for taking the time.
And yeah, see you in the community world.